timeouts left. The Lakers have 2. Bryant. It's a shot! A chance to send the Thunder home. Lillard, long range 3.
What's up, everybody? How we doing this week? Welcome to this week's edition of 48 Minutes Basketball Network. I know we're a day early, but just kind of with travel schedules and things, we thought this might make the most sense this week. I'm Tim Daniel here with Josh Hayes. We are without Sean, as Sean is in beautiful Florida this week, and Ben is celebrating his son's team getting to the District 9th Region Championships in the Northern Kentucky area. So kudos to them. Pretty cool. They beat like one of the better schools in our area. So that's pretty nice to see. You like to see it. But Josh and I, we're excited to be here and talk about a few things. And dude, I want to really get into, first of all, really excited about today. Had some really, really good Sunday afternoon games. And we were talking a little bit off air before we got on here. It totally gave like some NBA on NBC vibes of like the 90s, of like those Magic Heat games and those Knicks Bulls games you would see like Sunday at 2:00 when the NFL was over, and they kind of had to own that one. So the first game today on ABC was the Suns Mavericks game, which was awesome. It was super good. And obviously there's the storyline of Kyrie and Kevin Durant playing against each other for the first time since they both left Brooklyn. This is Durant's first week playing for Phoenix since the trade, and as suspected, fit in perfectly. Kyrie and Luka are tremendous. So there was one point I texted you guys today. I was like, I'm watching this game, and the guard play in this game is ridiculous, and it's not even fair. To the point where we're talking about the 4 starting guards. Chris Paul was the worst guard of the 4. And man, that was one heck of a game.
Absolutely. I was texting you earlier when you asking you about who was the other game, and you were like Lakers Warriors, and I was like, man, 2 years ago, Lakers Warriors, healthy Bron, healthy Steph, or just looking at the way that the season was supposed to pan out this year, like that's like a big time marquee matchup to be able to have on a matinee on a Sunday to watch. But for me, I was really looking forward to this Phoenix and Dallas game because I was like, KD's got a couple games under his belt. And I texted you and I said, hey, man, it's my personal opinion. KD healthy to me is always the best basketball player on the floor. And what I mean by that, he's just a pure hooper. Like, give me the rock. I can score. Like, I just love pure basketball. And we all said it, man, when we found out KD went to Phoenix. We're like, championship. Like, that team he seamlessly can just fit in anywhere and play ball. Like, he plays his ball his way, anywhere, any style, any system, all the time. And then you got on the other side, like you said, Luka and Kyrie. They pretty much been doing this together ever since that he's been in Dallas every single night. They just need everybody else to jump on board. So, man, I was keeping up on the game. I couldn't actually watch it, but I was keeping up on it. And you're right, man. It was a fun game. It kept going back and forth. And finally, Phoenix kind of pulled away towards the end. But I'm still always mesmerized, man, when I look at this stat line and I see KD 37 points on 17 shots. Like, I don't know how much more efficient you can get as a basketball player than this guy. And then to see, like, Devin Booker, I almost feel like he's being pushed since KD got there because he's balled out every single game.
Yes. Yeah.
So this team's going to be really hard to beat, man. In a 7-game series, that's because we both know when you get into the playoffs, rotations get shortened. So like 7 guys, maybe 8. And then like your superstars show up and those guys win games for you when it matters the most. So there's a lot of star power on these top teams in the West, man. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
And that's why, and I know we're going to get into it here in a minute, but like teams like Memphis and Denver, I've never really been like super sold on. Like Jokic is great, obviously, and Memphis has a really good young team. Don't get me wrong, but when it comes to shortening the rotation, it's like, it's like Denver's like Thomas Bryant, and it's like, all these guys. You're like, even like in a situation like, we'll talk about the Lakers here in a moment, but like if that's a 1-8, like I don't feel very. I mean, I feel like Denver would win. I feel like they're the better team, but I'm not super confident in them in that circumstance. And then, but like, yeah, like Phoenix, everyone after they made the trades, it's like, well, who are they going to play after their starters? And you're seeing these guys play really well for them, like you mentioned. And then with Dallas, we talked about ever since that trade happened. If it's a 2-man team, Tim Hardaway Jr. was excellent today. Don't get me wrong, but I don't really know. Besides, I mean, Christian Wood plays pretty well, so it's really, really an interesting dynamic for all those guys. But I thought today was just perfect. I think for Chris Paul, this is just like his best case scenario for basketball because this is the guy, right, that we kind of labeled the most jinxed NBA player. I think you can make the case now Chris Paul might be, if he's not the best, he's top 3 in best players to never win the championship. Barkley, Malone, Chris Paul, I think is kind of a really that's
Yeah.
I'm sure someone will throw other names at me, but I think this is just awesome for him in a situation where it's like, I've got Booker, I've got Durant. For DeAndre Ayton, life's a lot easier. Just get rebounds and we'll take care of the rest. And that's what he did today, getting 16 boards. So yeah, man, I'm in on this Phoenix team. We got to see Durant against Chicago Friday night and tear him up. I know Wednesday was Charlotte, tore them up. So I'm a believer for sure in them, man.
Well, the one guy that's really stepped up, man, that I don't think people really talk about, man, is Josh Okogie, man. Like he's moved into the starting lineup since Miles Bridges has been gone, and you look at his season stats, he's averaging 7 points and 3 rebounds a game, but his last 10, he's rolling at 17 and a half and 5. I mean, that's a huge jump just because he's getting minutes now.
Right.
And like some of these guys, when you see them get minutes, you know what they can do. So like when this rotation gets shorted, with Phoenix Suns, I mean, there's always that possibility you can get bubble TJ Warren, to show up at some point.
It's true.
Payne, Craig, Warren,
Terrence Ross,
like all veterans to me. Like I said, they've solidified, but their starting 5 right now has to be, I mean, if not one of the best, maybe the best in basketball at this point. When you just go and Booker, Paul, Ayton, Durant, I mean, and then just put it whoever you want to put in.
Yeah, me.
Right?
Yeah.
Tim Daniel, small forward. I like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sold on them.
I am too.
I wanted to see how long it was going to take KD to fit in, but then I realized like he played for the Warriors and he just fit in, and he went to Brooklyn and he just fit in, and I should have known that he was just going to fit in.
Yeah, he's the system where he goes. He's kind of like, him, LeBron, those are like the guys who's like, well, we're getting this guy and this is the system. It's like, no, he's the system. So that's kind of how it always goes with them. So on the other end, man, I hate that Kyrie Irving's such a distraction off the court because watching him play basketball and just his talent, and he's just a straight, hooper, and that's why I personally don't think his legacy is amazing, but I think his talents are amazing. I know he's got the shot against Golden State to win the title, but he's really done nothing besides without having LeBron in his corner. Look it up. It's facts are facts.
Yeah,
but man,
just with you real quick with that, and I was going to just touch is that he had his chance when he was in Boston to solidify himself as that guy, and he legit just dropped the ball
big time. Yeah, for sure. I agree. But tonight, man, I mean, today he's so fun to watch. Like when he's like playing basketball and nothing else matters. The stuff he does, like these crossover step back threes that he's the only person in the world that can do. His ball handling skills are obviously second to none. just so many things, man. Having Luka there, who just kind of have like a kind of be as like his, the second guy at times.
The way he
Really,
finishes at the rim, I've
oh my
never seen
god,
anybody at his size do what he can do.
dude, it's unbelievable the things he can do. It's like, why can't we just have that conversation about him? Because he always has to go do something else outside of it, which is, whatever. It's whatever. But like, God, dude, he's just unbelievable and stuff he's doing today. There was a moment in the game where Durant blocked his shot, and that was kind of funny because I knew I was like, that's gonna be all over Bleacher Report in 20 seconds, and it was. But Christian Wood played really well. Tim Hardaway Jr. played really well. But this team is like we've been saying, man, are we confident this is a non-play-in team? Are we sure like this is how we feel? Because right now, I get it. Right now they are the 7th seed. They are hosting the play-in. They're the same record as the Clippers, and they're 2 games above the Jazz and the Pelicans in the win column.
I told you all that I felt like even though they got Kyrie, they got worse.
I agree.
Because they lost so much depth on their team. And again, Kyrie can make up a lot. He can make up so much on the scoring end, but at times he's a liability on defense. Even though I've seen him play really good defense, when he wants to lock down on defense and play defense, he can play.
It's like James Harden.
But it's when he wants
to play defense.
When he wants to,
nice.
Right?
Yeah.
Same with Kyrie. Like I remember it was in the Philly game where he wanted to guard James Harden and he locked Harden up like big time. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to be that guy all the time. But on offense, he wants the ball all the time and he wants to score. As much as Luka's improved on defense, like he's still sometimes a liability on defense. So, they're big. Christian Wood's a liability on defense. I am glad they got Dwight Powell back. I think he helps a little bit. But when you look at their roster as a whole, like Luka and Kyrie's got to carry them to a series win. I mean, pretty much it is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, Luka obviously, going to the Western Conference Finals last year has shown the ability to win playoff series. But, obviously it's a team that's really dangerous if they do make a move, if they do kind of get on a hot streak, you're pretty scared about them. But, if you go back to that Lakers game last week when they're up, I mean, they destroy them in the first quarter. I think they're up 20. And then Los Angeles comes back and wins. And you're like, you guys need more guys. And look, I don't blame them. I'd probably make that move too if I'm the front office to get him on my team. But
definitely helps ticket sales.
Yeah, it helps ticket sales. It's the best player Luka's ever played with. We've been saying forever Luka needs a second guy. That's your second guy, but these top-heavy teams we're seeing don't succeed anymore. And that's the kind of conversation we've been having. It's like, unless you're Phoenix, of course. But I still think Phoenix is pretty well balanced, even with the moves they made.
So this team now, like Dallas, what they need is a Jared Allen type guy. They're not getting Jared Allen. Don't get me wrong.
No. They're definitely
not letting him go. But they need that kind of guy now on their team. I think that helps anchor like a defense that they can make some big stops when they need to. Somebody they can play pick and roll game with, that they can get to the basket. Christian Wood is good on one end of the ball, on one side of the ball and not the other. I've always told you, man, I'm lobbying. You guys think I'm crazy sometimes, but I'm like, JaVale McGee gives me quality minutes. I still don't understand why this guy don't play 20 minutes a game or more. Like, it just baffles me sometimes. And I know he's the kind of the butt of jokes with Shaq and a fool and stuff like that, but it's like every time I see him in the game, it's like 6 minutes. He's like 8 points, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks, and he's done. And that's the end of it. And you're like, start doing the math, and you're like, you do that over 36 minutes. You're like, man, that's a lot of stat line right there. But obviously they know something I don't that doesn't allow him to play. So
yeah, I don't know if it's like his body can't handle playing that many extended minutes or what, but yeah, I think that was a really fun game. And then the second game today, LA and Golden State, 2 teams really lobbying for their playoff lives, their playoff hopes. Golden State right now obviously has the 5 seed. They if the season ends today, they're playing at Phoenix for the first round. That's really fun. And then the Lakers are now just a half game behind New Orleans for the last play-in spot. So what today told me about these 2 teams, I'm going to take a whole different dynamic than I did on the other game, Josh. With the moves that the Lakers made and who the Warriors are, they're two teams that are just flat out impossible to count out. You can be like, oh, they've got this uphill battle. And it's like, but first off, are we sure Jared Vanderbilt wasn't the highlight of the trade? Are we sure it was D'Angelo Russell and not Jared Vanderbilt? I think it was Jared Vanderbilt.
Did you see that coming?
I kind of did, but not to this extent. I've always liked Vando. I always thought he was a really, really good dynamic role player. But what he's doing now next to Anthony Davis is unreal. And then, of course, on the other side, it's Golden State, it's Steph Curry, it's Klay Thompson. It's, whenever they get Wiggins back, if they have a playoff spot, you feel really good about them. But man, like this game was really fun. It was a big fight. The Lakers really needed Davis to be like super awesome to win this game. And he was. I mean, he absolutely was. And it's why he's the most irritating player in basketball. Because it's like, why is this like a here and there thing with you? 39-8 is something you can do regularly. And you did it the whole beginning of the year before you got injured. You were doing this, what was it, 2 weeks straight? We're like here, like you guys got to run your offense through him. And now it's like he picks and chooses when he does this. It's like, like my guy, you're the dude now. Until the LeBron's foot heals or whatever the hell's going on with that, this is up to you. And today he answered the challenge. He was terrific. They're just so much more better as far as like having extra bodies, right? The Rui Hachimuras, the Malik Beasleys, and they're without D'Angelo Russell and LeBron right now. Dennis Schroeder played pretty well today, even though he didn't shoot all that great. Our guy, Austin Reeves with another nice game. I listened to Jacoby and say that he doesn't count on this team, and he's like, what are they going to do when they have to play a Memphis Grizzlies team? Which I'm like, do you watch the Memphis Grizzlies in like the last 5 minutes of basketball games? It's messy. And this team seems to be pretty good. If they're in the game in the last 5 minutes, like they got a shot and they feel comfortable with it. So I think go ahead.
To add to that though, they're 3-2 in their last 5 games, but the teams that they beat were Oklahoma City, which is a team they had to beat.
Yep.
Then they lost to Memphis, which was kind of a chippy of a little bit of a game. Ja went off in that game a little bit.
Yeah, he was awesome in that game.
Especially was the third quarter when he went like 28 points, like just
crazy.
And then we'll talk about that here in a minute. But then they beat Dallas, which was a team they had to beat, and now they've beaten Golden State, which was a team they had to beat.
Yeah.
So you don't really see it in the record at 31-34, but like you said, they gained some ground, knocking some of these playoff teams down a notch. And then they gained on the Pelicans, who I think might end up just falling apart if they can't.
I think they're done.
Yeah, if they especially, I don't know if my man's going to make it back. I really don't. I don't think Zion's going to make it back at this point. They can't win without him. We see what team they are with him. He just gives them a whole different dynamic. But the Lakers, we said it at the beginning of the season, the roster they had was horrible. Like it just did. This roster now fits. It fits what they want to do. Beasley is a shooter. Like this guy can get hot and knock down shots. They have shooters now.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt, I can't understand because his stats don't look any different, but he makes them better.
So much better.
He makes all the little things that he does on the floor. I think Rui, what might have been a better deal than what we thought it was. He makes some big baskets when he needs to.
Mm-hmm. He's a good defender. He's like far better as a defender than I thought he was.
And up until he got hurt, D'Angelo Russell looked like he was going to fit in just fine. And other than the fact that he messed up his whole money bag, Schroeder coming back to the Lakers was a huge piece of them. I think.
What a budget.
Right?
Yeah.
The $84 million, I don't want that. I'm betting on myself.
The Lakers get him for the minimum, and it's like he's really good. I like this. I mean,
and of course, we talk about it all the time. Ben and I the other night, we raved about like not understanding why Lonnie Walker IV was not in the rotation. And we always know on here, every time we talk about somebody, sure enough, the next night he goes for like 21, 22 points. And I'm like, oh, there he is.
So let's say they have a healthy LeBron, which all they care about is having him healthy and having a shot in the playoffs. That's all they care about. You're looking at LeBron, Anthony Davis, Malik Beasley, D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura, Dennis Schroeder, Troy Brown, who's fine, Lonnie Walker, who you just mentioned. And I don't know. I don't think I'm going to put Mo Bamba in there. I don't think you can play Mo Bamba.
No,
in a
just
playoff
go there.
series.
You're nine at this point. You're 9 deep.
That's pretty good. Like you're going to have to cut 2 of those guys out of your rotation. There's no way Austin Reeves leaves the rotation, obviously, but that's solid. That's solid. And on the other end with Golden State, like we said, this is a team who just got Steph Curry back and had won 5 in a row going into today. They're without Andrew Wiggins as he's kind of going through some personal stuff, so hopefully he's back soon. Jonathan Kuminga was really good today. I know that, Wise moves on to Detroit and he's played pretty well there. I'm really happy for him. And I want to see him continue to get better. Moses Moody is just not playable. We're kind of realizing, which kind of stinks because I was really high on him.
But here's the thing, though. He's still so young, though.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Which is the same thing. Like the problem with the Warriors, they're in win now mode. Like they only have a small window at this moment, right?
Yeah. Draymond talked about it on his pod this week. He's like, yeah, the writing's kind of on the wall. This is it.
Yeah, so we were kind of looking at it as Jordan pulls like the passing of the torch. Like they got the young guys. We can maybe create a Golden State 2.0, but these guys just aren't as talented as those 3 guys that got drafted.
Right.
And the unsung hero of that team that gets no respect sometimes, no credit is Kevon Looney.
I agree.
He definitely does all of the things that needs to be done. Obviously, last year Wiggins was a big piece of them winning, but their windows probably this year and maybe next year is the only chances they got, and then I see that starting to become different. The luxury tax, the contracts, Draymond's contracts, like that team, it's almost similar to what we saw with the Last Dance type thing, which we've talked about before. So they got to win now. Here's the cool thing about that, though. The Lakers the Warriors starting 5 is the best starting 5 in basketball on paper, analytics, numbers. So we're talking Draymond, Wiggins, Clay, Steph, Looney. They're the best starting 5 in basketball. I believe they will have that team ready for the playoffs.
I was just about to say. So I'm looking now. I don't know if I'd pick them against Phoenix in a series in the first round. But say they drop to the 6 and things stay as they are. I picked them to beat the Kings. I might look silly, but I picked them to beat the Kings. I would probably pick them to beat Memphis.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, Memphis we'll talk about in a minute. The Kings won't be a tough out, though. They'll be a tough out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I absolutely agree. But okay, and on the other end, so these 4 teams above them right now, the Lakers right now in the play-in. New Orleans, we just talked about. We think they fly out. Utah, I think they fall out too. I just think that with everything kind of going on there. So then you're looking at Dallas and the Clippers, who they have not beat the Clippers in 17 years, it feels like. And will obviously be tough because there's always a good matchup. Westbrook's been fine since he's gone there. I don't think he's been as great as the stats say he's been. If you watch some of these games.
Except the Clippers are 0-5 since he's gotten traded.
Right. Yeah. So do you take the Lakers over the Clippers right now? I think it's a close conversation. I think it's a conversation. I do think it's a conversation, but I'm not there yet. So then it comes down to, okay, do you take them over Dallas? And I think I do. So I want the Lakers in the playoffs just because it's fun. I want the Warriors in the playoffs because it's fun. I love that the Kings are there. I love that Memphis is there. I love that Phoenix is doing their thing. I think Phoenix will win the title. But, I told you after the trade deadline, I think it's going to be Phoenix and I think it's going to be Boston. But we're going to get to a team that's obviously going to be in that situation here in a second. By the way, was Boston still down to the Knicks right now?
Yes, they were when I looked last. I don't know what it is right now. Which
Knicks are up
to believe
2 with 3 minutes left.
Did we sell the Knicks too early?
Yes, we did. You got all those Villanova kids back together, and they're like, "Oh yeah, dude, we made the Garden our second home. So like we were there winning championships forever. So we'll just do it again." Um, so yeah, I am stoked. I think the West is definitely weaker than the East, but the storylines are better, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see how it all plays out, especially if Davis and LeBron stay healthy. It's a whole different ball game. And I guess now D'Angelo Russell, because D'Angelo Russell's really never he's been in a playoff series, but he's never really had an experience like this where he could really be successful. So
we're tied ball game with 3 minutes left, 104.
Yeah, because I was gonna do a segment on the Knicks tonight if we had at a time. So if they lose, it's like they're still pretty good. But like the idea of right now the 4-5 there is Cleveland and New York. That's fun. So I feel like Evan Mobley is like just about to take that step. Like it's like he's doing awesome things and he's really, really good. We speak his praises all the time, but it feels like he's like clicking into that next level that we all thought he was capable of. And I thought this was going to be like next year he was clicking into that, and it's coming. And that's frightening as they're going about to make their first run in the playoffs since the LeBron era. So, all right, we'll get to that, I'm sure. We got to talk about the whole Ja Morant thing, and I don't want to make it like a whole praise session, like preaching session by any means, but
I'm glad we didn't start with it. I'm glad we started talking basketball first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, with this kind of going on, I don't want to take the angle of, I guess I'm going to take the angle I don't want to take. And so, you obviously being a dad, of two teenage boys who are basketball fans, I'm sure they really enjoy the game of Ja Morant. My two nephews are 12 and 8, and they have Ja Morant jerseys. They get their hands on every Ja Morant trading card they possibly can. They are counting the days until Nike puts the release date on his sneakers because they want it so bad. They went to Indiana just to see him play. They arrived 3 hours early just for shoot around to see him warm up. He's become that guy for kids. And, now this is really the first time in my life where I'm seeing so I don't know what you can compare it to from your when you were younger, but for me, and this is totally different circumstances, obviously, but I grew up 2001 to 2003. Those Lakers teams were gods to me. The Shaq Kobe team. So when Kobe got in trouble and all this stuff started coming out, I remember it was the first time I felt heartbreak and disappointment in an athlete where I was like, man, I looked up to this guy. He's so cool. I had the number 8 jersey. I tried to get my hands on crazy 8s. So now seeing it through my nephews who I think the world of has really changed for me. And just really has sucked just to see, because he's, we talk about it all the time. He's probably the most fun NBA player to watch on the court right now with the things he does. And he has definitely developed into being someone kids will love watching play because they love the YouTube highlights. And, Memphis carries this chip on their shoulder as a team that he kind of leads the way. So now kind of seeing that the story that comes out earlier in the week with, the game at his house, and then this whole thing with his, Instagram, social media, it sucks, dude. It's really disappointing. And, he, like I said, one of my favorite players in the world to watch play. Absolutely love watching Ja Morant play. And that's all I want him to do. I just want him to play ball. And I feel like this kind of sucks.
So we touched on it, and I want to get into this without assuming things,
Right.
because obviously I don't know Ja. I don't know his dad T. I don't truly know Ja's upbringing. You got some of the funny memes going around about how he went to, a private school and, kind of making fun of the little 8 Mile thing. But here's what I'll say. When you grow up and you have friends, okay, generally when you're younger, especially if you have close friends and you guys stay in touch. So, for instance, we'll use LeBron. for an example, right? Went to St. Vincent, St. Mary. We all know his story, but his basketball team, how him and his boys went there to the school, were all together. They're still friends to this day. We all know the paths all of his friends took, right? We don't know that backstory of Ja and his friends, and like what happened after Ja made it. Like, what did his friends decide to do, right? So, as far as I know, Ja could just still be really close with his friends that grew
Sure.
up, and they decided to choose a different path than what he did. Probably very similar to Allen Iverson type ish background with all his friends, right?
Yeah.
And the question that really lies there is that now you're Ja Morant. You're the number 2 pick in the draft, who went rookie of the year, who has exceeded all expectation and has now became sort of a mini face of a league, right? You have your own signature shoe with the biggest brand in the world when it comes to basketball. And we both know, as they say, you can go all the way into like the Spider-Man saying, right? With great power comes a great responsibility.
Yeah.
He's probably got so many people from all different angles, like in his ear, and of course, hopefully
Sure.
the main one is his dad saying like, hey, keep your head on straight. Because from everything I've ever heard, his dad has kept him on a straight line all the way until where he's got to where he is. Now we see his dad at the games and stuff, and he's there rooting for his son, and he's acting a fool sometimes. But I'd like to think behind closed doors, like they have conversations, and he's like, hey, son, like I know that I'm this and this and that, but you need to be like this. So I'm really hoping that this is one of those things that Ja did, and he made a mistake, and he owns up to it, which he has up to this already.
Yeah.
And he learns from it, and he moves on, and it never happens again.
Yeah. That's all we hope for. You mentioned T Morant and like all that stuff. Like, I just feel like he's just like every AAU dad. You know what I mean? Like, the guy is like, my son is the man. Like, my son is that dude. He is him. And you see them all the time if you go to like the Nike basketball circuit, the EYBL. So it's definitely different. But I agree, man. This is, I just want to talk about him dunking on people and getting the crowd in Memphis fired up after he makes a big play. So he's suspended for 2 games for now. They haven't really put a guarantee on how long he'll be gone. I can't imagine it'll be very long.
But I want everybody to understand the difference between like basketball when we grew up, Tim, and I'm even a little older than you. So like
Yeah.
the rarity that we had watching some of these young guys, right? We had Kobe and we had Garnett. Were really the 2 big name guys, right? That came out of high school early, played early. Dwight Howard. Just thinking some of like not all guys that came out. I'm just thinking about the guys that came out and became superstars at a young age.
Right.
Nowadays, everybody in the draft is young. Like everybody's coming out at 18, 19 years old, or they're coming from the G League. So like Ja Morant's 23, right? He's in I guess technically his 4th year in the league now. He's 23. Like he's a kid.
Yeah. He just so happened to get a huge contract that kids that age just never see.
My idol growing up, Michael Jordan, 23, he was only in his like 2nd year in the NBA.
Yeah. He was getting ready for he was getting his foot healed for Boston. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
See the difference?
Yeah, it is totally different. You're right. And I think that brings up a thing too of so if you look at this draft coming up, it is international stars and G League players and like overtime elite and stuff. There is one college player right now people are talking about in the top 5. And that's Brandon Miller, who has like this weird, unbelievable, just like uncomfortable story going on. So it's like, if you're like the guy who hangs your hat on like college football, college basketball is the best way to get players ready for the NBA. Like that doesn't look good right now. And we're not going to get into all the semantics there by any means and all that stuff, but this is just a really weird time for like these younger kids and they're like, the attention they're getting. That's much worse. Probably. It's way worse, obviously, than the Ja Morant situation, but it's just a really different time. And like you said, these are young dudes You hope they learn from mistakes. I don't even know how the Brandon Miller thing's going to go, so I'm not even going to speculate. But Ja released a statement. Nike released a statement saying like they're really happy that he like understands what happened, what he's going to try to do to make it better. So yeah, like we said, I just want to get to the point where we talk about Ja Morant dunking on people, and we're having a good time talking about his basketball games again. And that's all I want. I mean, he's one of the few guys I have an NBA jersey for. I don't want to be disappointed in having that.
And to be honest with you, I think that this will be a distraction that will go away, and it won't be a thing anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I hope you're right. So let's get back to court stuff. On the court stuff, I should say. By the way, the Knicks are up 1 with 17 seconds to go. So last night, we talked about this for a second before we came on the air. Milwaukee's win streak ends after 16 games. They're still 45-18. They're still okay. They also just are going to be bringing in Goran Dragic. He will not be playing Monday, but in their game against the Monday. No, I'm sorry. They don't play till Tuesday. They play Orlando. But dude, so you mentioned earlier that you said like when Kevin Durant is on the floor and he's healthy, you feel like he's the best player on the court at all times. I think Giannis is my only argument for him. And it's a totally different player, totally different dynamic. I did laugh at him being on the Daily Show. I thought that was kind of funny, even though he was set up for it. But this was kind of like his wild game. Like it's like Milwaukee up so big, and I think we talked about like we think the East is better than the West right now. At least I said that. I don't mean to speak for you, but those three teams right now in the East, you can probably make the case. You can make a case for all three of them to win the finals. The only reason we don't make a case for the Sixers is Doc Rivers is their head coach, and he knows how to coach himself out of winning playoff series. But this spot, just a crazy, crazy thing. Like what an awesome win streak to see. So really excited about how the Bucks respond. I know they played today against.
They won today
against Washington.
Ben and I talked about their streak, thinking that we actually said if they get past the Sixers, we see this streak running into the mid-20s. Was our exact conversation. And sure enough, I was watching, thinking like, man, we're gonna nail this on the head, right? Like they're gonna beat the Sixers.
Yeah,
they play the Wizards next, and that's a game they can win. Then they go Magic and Nets, and then they got the Warriors, who we don't ever know which Warriors team is going to show up. So they would have been 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then they play the Kings and the Suns on the road. And that was where I thought it was going to get dicey for them. One, because I know how Phoenix is stacked right now. But I told you, I feel like the Bucks roster is the best constructed in the East to make a run at the finals. And the only thing that scares me about their roster is Chris Middleton's health. Like he didn't play tonight. And I don't know if that was just maintenance or if he's out again, but he didn't play against the Sixers either. Or sorry, he did play against the Sixers, but he didn't start. So I'm not sure if they're just trying to wean him back in, but if you look at their roster, the way that it's built and the guys they went and got just for the playoff run, Joe Ingles, Jay Crowder. I've already told you guys like Bobby Portis, he's huge for them.
He is.
Carter, they could shorten their roster and play with anybody. Like they could shorten that rotation and play with 8 guys and play against anybody. And I feel like the guys they got coming off the bench is the guys that help them win. I hate to say it, but like Grayson Allen has really stepped up into a role that I never thought he could step up into.
Me too.
I've always, your guy, P. Connington, Mr. Pat. I feel like he does a lot of things that doesn't show up on the stat line sometimes. Yeah. And then, of course, you got Lopez, Holiday, Giannis, Middleton. I mean, that team's so good. They play so well together, man. They really do.
And like they're young guys that do play, like they get like their minutes. They don't get a ton of minutes, but like Marshawn Bucamp is pretty good. He's not going to go out there and probably give you 35 minutes by any means in like a big game. I don't even know if he'll make their playoff rotation, but
Right.
pretty decent. Javon Carter, Joe Ingles, guys that people kind of gave up on. Jay Crowder, who they just brought in, guys people gave up on.
Wesley Matthews, I mean, who was at
Yeah.
the Lakers last year, like he's been known to hit some big shots, here and there. I always say the Giannis's little brother. I feel like sometimes he's just on the roster just to be there because Giannis wants him there for some comforts that are like, yeah, we'll put him on there. We'll make you feel good.
Costas gets cut by the Bulls, but Thanasis is like still living large.
So yeah, man, I feel like the way this is going to line up, it's a Boston Bucks Eastern Conference Finals, man. Unless Philly does something miraculous.
I don't know, man. So, I said on here that I feel like the Celtics are going to win the title, and I hate everything inside me like hurts when I say that. I think that they don't want to play the Knicks in a playoff series. I think the Knicks match up really well with them. I don't know again, it goes back to, I don't know if I would say the Knicks would beat them, but I think they would give them a hell of a run in a series.
And see, I think Cleveland matches up with Milwaukee well.
I do too. That's another one, man. Like I just said, like Mobley is like this close to tapping into that next level. After he had that really god awful game in January where Kendrick Perkins called him out and was like, "What the hell? Where the hell are you?" He is balled out for good stretches. And he is really kind of jumping in. Like I tell you, dude, like if you watched him play, and look, there are local TV team on our local channels, so we get to see them plenty. He's this close. He's not far away.
He's only 21.
21! And he's already like got future defensive player of the year written all over him. Like next to another guy who could potentially be the defensive player of the year. So they're fun. I like them a lot, as you know. Yeah, the East is going to be really, really, really interesting, especially as we kind of get down to this final stretch. We got 1 month left of the NBA season. So it's going to be really interesting to see that like 4 or 5. Also, I don't know if I would take them to win a playoff series, but this group of guys that Brooklyn got back in these 2 trades look pretty good together. And you saw last night, obviously, they have that unbelievable comeback win against the Celtics.
What is it with these comebacks, man? Like teams are getting blown out.
Crazy.
And they just come back and win these games. There's been like 5 or 6 of them
I know.
in the last couple weeks. We're talking 25, 30-point deficits, and teams are coming back and winning.
Yeah, I mean, it was at one point it was 51-23 Celtics in that game. And by the way, Mikal Bridges just casually dropped 38 points to lead his team back to win. Your guy, Nick Claxton, like I said, I'm not taking the Brooklyn Nets to beat any of the teams above them in a playoff series, but they are good. And these players they brought in certainly make them a shit ton more likable of a team. I know you're a big Durant guy, but
tell you what, all the Knicks need to do is figure out a small little trade to get Mikal Bridges up there in New York, and then
get all the Villanova guys.
Villanova's like, hey, we already got a national chip. Let's go ahead and get this NBA title, man.
Right, Archidiakonos like, why was I traded for Josh Hart? You guys should have kept me here. We could have kept this going. Good stuff. All right. Is there anything else we need to touch on before we get out of here? I'm trying to think of anything big.
No, I mean, we touched on the Bucks win streak, Memphis. We touched on other than like last week, we didn't have the info at hand when Ben and I were talking, but now we know about LeBron's injury to a little more extent. And they said they were going to reevaluate him in 3 weeks. And obviously we talked about the Lakers, didn't talk about him, but it definitely worries me a little bit after they pushed it back a week after they were like, originally they were like, hey, we're going to reevaluate him after a couple weeks. And then it's like, no, we're going to do 3 weeks. And if they push that back a little bit more, because I had told Ben, I was like, I'm a little nervous. He's going to miss like a month.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's not good.
I don't know if that Lakers team can carry on without him. Even if they were to make the play in, like in a one and done game, like that worries me. Even with AD carrying the load, like they end up having to play somebody like Dallas, where they got two guys against your one. Um, I feel like it's another lost season for LeBron, and I know I'm usually the token LeBron hater on here, but like I said, as his career's winding down, um, and I know Ben sometimes says he feels like he's got 3 or 4 really good years left in him. I don't, because I start seeing like how severe these injuries are happening to him, and when you start messing with feet and
Yeah.
ankles, if he's not turned into a spot up jump shooter at some point, and he keeps this, roll away like man child to the basket, like I just think his body's going to break down on him at some point. He comes in the season, he's fine. I'm pretty sure originally when he got hurt, it was the same ankle that got hurt last time.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about some tendon damage in his foot, and like that's nothing to play with, man. So especially at the size that he is and the weight that he carries, like I don't know, man. That just scares me a little bit that like if they don't take care of this the right way, and just if he tries to come back like, hey, I need to make this playoff run because the playoffs are important, like I feel like it could damage the rest of his career in the long run.
By the way, I did want to mention one last thing because you mentioned LeBron before we get out of here. Did you see Josh Smith's quote about LeBron?
I did not.
He said that he would not be able to dominate in his era. Josh Smith has been drafted and retired in the time frame of LeBron's career. So what era necessarily is he talking about here?
Wasn't Josh Smith like 03?
05 to 18.
So he got drafted after LeBron.
Yeah, and retired way before him.
Okay, then.
All right. Like Rashid's was at least like, he got drafted in the late 90s, and like he played with them for like played in the same league for a couple years. Josh Smith's career went like through before like his like LeBron like even hit his prime. So yeah, buddy. Okay. Go back to your Atlanta Hawks teams that did nothing.
As much as before we get off here, like I can't really put this into words, but like let's say at the end of this year, right? I know LeBron wants to play with his son. Let's just say like his foot's damaged and he's like, I don't think I can go and compete at the level I'm used to competing at because of the injury I sustained on my foot. And it was probably hurt a while back and he kept playing on it, right?
Yeah.
I don't think people understand or they're ready for the next year coming and LeBron's not playing in the league, like what that actually means. Yeah, I know there's some guys that are in the league that. I know there's some guys that are still in the league that are good, like Steph and Durant, and you got Giannis coming up and some of these young guys, but I'm like the Tatums and the Jaws and like, but they're not LeBron. Like they're not.
Yeah.
We're lobbying that this guy could technically be the greatest of all time. Like I don't think they realize like what is happening. So like when he leaves, right? Like I mean, we felt it when Jordan left. Like even though he came back for the Wizards, like sure. we never really looked at that Wizard stint and said like, oh, Mike's back. Like we knew what he was doing when he came back. We knew it was a business decision that was potentially to put him in place to own a franchise, which he actually does now. LeBron's still playing as a ball player that is trying to win a championship at the highest level at 38.
Yeah.
It's just broke the all-time scoring record. And as even me, like saying like we're watching greatness, like you don't get this kind of greatness in any sport anywhere. I mean, at all. Like you're looking at soccer, you're looking at the Ronaldo and Messi, Tiger Woods in golf, Mike Trout right now in baseball when he's healthy, Barry Bonds when he retired,
Tom
Brady just retired. Like you don't get that greatness often. Like this is like Kareem. This is like a once in a lifetime generational thing that like there may never ever be a guy that we see that plays at the level that he plays at. And that's it.
I agree, man. I completely agree with you. So I think with that being said, we will go ahead and wrap this up. Josh, I really appreciate you kind of being available on such short notice for us to get this done with. But
Always,
hey,
man.
don't forget, if you are checking us out, so Mondays on the other feed, At Large Bid, our college basketball show, Parker Fields and Neil Meyer holding it down. It's the last show for Selection Sunday. We got conference tournaments coming up. So kind of curious to get their thoughts on all that. And then on Wednesday mornings, early afternoons, I should say, Parker Fields and I here on this feed do our NBA draft preview show. We've done 2 episodes so far. We've gotten some good feedback on it. We'll give you 3 prospects to kind of give our opinions on who we think they are and where they could potentially slip into the draft. Last week was a good one. We did Bryce Sensabaugh, Kyle Filipkowski, and Amani Bates, which is definitely a hot button. We have 3 really good guys coming up this week as well. So please take a second to check that out. I can confirm that we're on every darn podcast app imaginable. I went through and did all of that work last week while I had some downtime. And if you want to go grab some gear, please make sure to take a second to go to 40minutesbasketballnetwork.merchmake.com. I got to order that new dad hat before I head to Charlotte and on St. Patrick's Day. So we'll be back next week. Thank you all. Have a good night, and we'll talk soon.
See you later, everybody.